Okay, so my name is Becky Keith. I'm the CEO of Intelliboard, and we are September 21st celebrating our 10th anniversary. So it was so close to the Moot, we thought, that'll be a good theme for the Moot Global. And MoodleMoot people like to have fun. So today we're talking about strategies to boost learner retention. It's all about analytics and all of the rich data that lives in your Moodle LMS. Moodle and Intelliboard. Moodle was our very first plugin, our very first LMS relationship. So we've been with Moodle all 10 of those years. And today we're just going to talk through the combining the enhancing your reporting to identify learners at risk, making it actionable, and then having proactive interventions to save learners, save dollars. And it's not just for higher ed, for corporate, for government as well. 10 years of insight, so 10 years of turning data into action. We started September 21st as a Moodle plugin. How many of you have been around since then? Maybe even remember the original Intelliboard, the original plugin? Lots, yes. And from there, we our first client, hold on, I wrote it down, was HVAC RDU. And our longest client since January of 2016 is mylearningplus.com. So since 2015, in May of 2018, we launched Intelliboard 5.0, which was our second big version of our legacy platform. And then in 23, we launched predictive learning analytics. 22 launched Intelliboard Pro, and our first Intelliboard Pro was also a Moodle client, a Moodle US client, Sensei. We released Moodle Workplace in 2023, added SIS integrations in 2024. We're launching Intelliboard Risk Score, and that leads into our AI foundation as well. So thank you to those of you who have been with us for all of these 10 years and through the changes that we have gone through. So Intelliboard, our enterprise version, it takes the LMS data, your Moodle data, and extends it beyond Moodle, giving it to those who may not be inside Moodle. So when we're talking about a higher ed institution, we're talking about the leadership, department heads, advisors, and taking that rich Moodle data and giving it the right data in the right hands at the right time. Thinking about if you are higher ed and athletics, your athletic coaches have zero insight into what's happening in real time in the LMS throughout the term, if that's applicable to you. If it's not, change that for advisors. Your advisors, your tutors, they have the responsibility they have the relationships with the students, but all too often, those people have zero access to the data that's in Moodle. They have access to that SIS data. And when does the SIS get updated? At the end of the term, perhaps midterm. And then it's too late. So now our intervention strategies are probation strategies. We're trying to save the learners instead of proactively identifying the learners and getting the right data in the hands of the right people. Okay, more interactive. So we've got a true or a false, but we're going data or drama. Okay, so one hand is data, so that's true. Two hands is drama, false. Okay, so Intelliboard helps with learning analytics, not financial data. Data or drama? Drama. We have, when you bring in that SIS data, you can bring in course hours, you can bring in financial data. When you bring in course hours, you can bring in cost per course. When you identify risk and you add the cost, the hours of the course, now you have your tuition at risk. We have a client, Southern University, Baton Rouge in the United States, and they use one of our default reports called Dollars at Risk. It's the idea of getting the right data in the right hands of the right people. So an advisor or an instructor might need risk, but what about enrollment? What about your leadership? When they can look at learners at risk and identify the price, the enrollment, the tuition that is at risk, then they can start to do something about it. So Southern University, Baton Rouge, they ran the Dollars at Risk report last term. They had 50% of all of their enrollments were at risk. So not only did they start making interventions to save those learners, but they said, okay, now we know potentially how many we're potentially going to lose. So they went to enrollment and boosted their incoming enrollment numbers. So identifying the risk can help the athletic coach identify ineligible athletes before they go ineligible. It can help financial aid. If you have financial aid reporting where financial aid scholarships where students have to maintain a certain GPA to keep that scholarship, bringing that type of data into your Moodle data is a different filter. It can be now filtered for those specific groups of students. You can have your financial aid proactively monitoring different scholarships or groups of students throughout the term instead of realizing at the end of the term that now they've lost their scholarship. So today we are going to highlight 10 years of real stories. I've already shared one with Southern University, Baton Rouge, but these are some of our Moodle clients that some are here in the house. We have Tall Tech. Is Tall Tech here? There, yeah, Tall Tech. EHL, hospitality, is EHL there. University of Barcelona, no, not here. Pad Pilot wasn't able to come to the Moot, but they are a Titus client. I don't know if Titus isn't, whoops, didn't touch. Enov, and Enov is an EduNow partner, but I don't know, is EduNow? No. And then Soplai, yeah, is a South Africa. And do they have a partner? Self-hosted. So we have some questions that they are going to answer, but I'm also curious if you in the audience have an answer to any of these questions as well. You can raise your hand and be rewarded with a little Scottish whiskey take home. All right, so tell us about your role in the biggest learner success challenge your institution or organization was facing before using Intelliboard. So we do have a client to answer, but if you also are thinking about just your data challenges, without having Intelliboard or whatever your data solution is, what were the challenges that you faced prior or that you currently face with data and data adoption?
So for this question is Birgit talking from Toltec. If you could rise, I thought there was a mic. Ah, over there. Oh. Sorry, Birgit, if you could just come and answer. And it's not to sing yet.
Oh, here's one. Oh, yeah. Here's one over here, too.
Hello, I'm Birgit from Toltec. Before we started using Intelliboard, then our biggest problems, I guess, was that our program managers and study consultants couldn't access the student data during the semester. So exactly what as told before, they could only access the data after the semester had ended, which meant that they had to wait until the lecturers added the grades of the students to our SIS, and then they could see that. But after we started using Intelliboard, then now the study consultants and also the program managers can access the data during the semester and actually like from the first week of the semester. So right away they can start following the students, and if the students are at risk of, I don't know, not doing their tests or not logging into Moodle and accessing the courses, then they can just get the data right away, they can see, and if needed, then they just contact them individually and ask if they need help.
Thank you. Yeah. Does anyone else have anything to add about challenges you face with data?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I have got a loud voice, I don't know the mic, but
Okay.
I'll boom at you now. So my name is Don Cook from Learn Team. I worked for 5 years for looking at UK health organisations. That was one of the big agencies in that area. What I would say is that Moodle as a platform is really great at real-time data. It really has all the data available to it, but it's rubbish at predictive, looking at trends and being able to anticipate based on past behaviours. If you like, predicting, applying predictive style AI to be able to anticipate what's going to happen next. And we did a lot of work within the organisation that I was with, looking at that. And like I say, I think Intelliboard came up in quite a lot of our conversations. You know, you're right on that sweet spot. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And did you give me whiskey? You know, that's what we hear a lot, is there's rich data in the platform. How do we make sense of it? How do we visualize it in a way that makes it actionable and user-friendly, so you're not having to click several screens to get to the data that you want? So that aggregate view. Anyone else? Okay.
Vexter.
Hello. I can answer the second question.
Okay.
From the sales perspective in general. Then you mentioned that if a client can reach this breakpoint, then he sees or she that they can save the money or they can save students, for example, or something like that. That is not that how much Intelli costs in general, because you will save more in general, because you investing, especially in university, to attract students. You're competing with other institutions, and it is just of the question how not to lose with leads, let's say, because you are selling your services. So I think the main case is to show the value and the places where you are losing money in general, because universities, a lot of universities saying that they are not a business organizations. They are. And you need to find their losings, your benefits or your advantages. So I think the data analysis can help you in general not to do these mistakes. So and it can be a sales point.
Yeah, and you can look at the tuition per student. Looking at that over time, because it costs more money to bring in a new student than it does to keep the one that you have. And you don't just have the one for this semester, you also have next semester, maybe some summer, and the next year, as long as the learner persists. Yeah. Anybody? Okay.
Let's see. Hi, Joost Elsof, Zuid University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands. I wanted to address the elephant in the room. The quality of the content and the interactions in a course in an LMS are crucial for the Intelliboard side of things. Garbage in is garbage out. So if you have courses that are mainly piles of files, PDFs, organized on a weekly basis, it doesn't make any sense to do anything about student dropout rates or anything, because viewing a PDF once, downloading it to your laptop, and any interaction with the source are gone. So that's one thing that's a huge barrier on getting meaningful learning analytics from any side.
And I would say that is actually meaningful, because then you know how to address maybe some professional development and course design improvements as well. When you have, when your data tells you that there's low activity and engagement, we have, one of the personas that we work with is the course designer. So looking at course design and discussion forums and new content and how that content impacts engagement and assessment. But garbage in, garbage out for sure. One of the things, Katarina, you all probably know her, those of you that are here in EMEA, because she works with all of you very, very closely. One of the big things when we first connect is identifying some of that garbage that needs to be cleaned up. I mean, Moodle's been around a long time, and a lot of these institutions have had Moodle a long time. And so, really cleaning up some of that's kind of a value add that we don't really tout, but it is. Getting into the Moodle and identifying things. People, kind of a touchy topic is instructor behavior, but that's a big thing that is identified early on. Submission assignments and how long it's between the submission and the grade. Also the instructor feedback. But all of that is important because that's good teaching. My daughter is a high school student. She took a dual enrollment course last year, and she was about, it was at least 6 weeks had gone by. She had done 6 additional weeks of assignments before one was graded, and they all built upon each other. It was an English course. She was writing an essay, writing a research paper. Well, she had messed up her citations the very first assignment that hadn't been graded for 6 weeks. Well, in the 6 weeks, what had she done? She had done that same thing over and over and over and over and over again for 6 weeks. Stuff like that is important for an institution to identify, and reporting does that. We'll move on, but if you have I think there were another hands, maybe that'll come up here in a few minutes. So yeah, there's lots of challenges, lots of questions that we have about our data. Do deans and chairs have access to instructor engagement? One that I just said. How can we track risk across programs in real time? How do we measure the impact of our interventions? How many tuition dollars are at risk? Is RSI compliance monitored? RSI is it's a U.S. term. It's a federal mandate, but it's the regular and substantive interaction between the instructor and the learner. So is there regular interaction happening between the instructor and the learner and other learners? So these are just a few of the challenges that we have with making sense of that data. There's all the rich data. How do we make sense of it? And these are some of the questions that we have. So data or drama? Every user sees the same dashboard in Intelliboard. Data or drama? You all know Intelliboard. Drama. Yes, we have, out of the box, 150 dashboards, and we have a role-based approach. So each learner or each user in Intelliboard sees the data that they have permission to see. Now, it could be the same dashboard. Matter of fact, we're actually having a lot of success with quicker adoptions and easier adoptions at institutions, having one learner success dashboard that when you add in that SIS data, then you can filter it to different demographics. So if you're advisors or your instructors or leadership, and then you have leadership looking at the same report that the faculty's looking at, that your advisors are looking at, so it's people are more confident to launch it and roll it out, but you only see the data that you have access to see. So when we launch at an institution, now I keep saying institution, but corporate learning, when the learning matters to the business, it is part of their business model. If they sell their courses, if they care about if you are a corporate, if you come from the corporate side and have learning that for safety reasons, for compliance, for health, for your business, you sell your learning, then Intelliboard's a great fit for you as well. And it's the same idea, just different names. A manager or a supervisor instead of an advisor. So when we come in, we take a role-based approach. And again, it's about that there's so much rich data in Moodle, and getting it in the hands of others at the institution to build a community focused on learner retention and success. So we go in and say, okay, let's start with academic leadership, or often it's the LMS administrator. People want to start with the LMS admin. Rolling it out to the LMS admin, then going to your leadership, and then from the leadership, going to advisors. And we use the roles that you have in Moodle, or you can bring that data into Intelliboard as well. So for example, I know I keep using athletics, and that's not as big here, but it's the same idea. You bring in the athletic coach, or it could be the athletic advisor, or your advisors in the institution, your mentors, and bring in that data to Intelliboard, match it with your Moodle data, and now they have permission to see only those learners when they look at that report. The registrars have first submission. They need to, for online courses, when learners first attend the course, or maybe they don't show up to the course, that data is critical for a registrar, and being able to provide that directly to them instead of having to put them inside the LMS as an admin is a more efficient way. So how did you decide what data was most important for each role? And Katerina is going to...
To win the whiskey bottle. Okay, it's just to explain.
I knew that would
the
work.
Process. It was quite simple. So EHL, business, hospitality in Switzerland, higher ed, and this is Charlotte.
Hello. It's open? Yeah. So sorry, I really don't like speaking in public, so... So Charlotte, yes, I'm working in the EdTech Solution department at the HL. We really are at the implementation phase of Intelliboard. And to define the role, first we wanted to select one. So we selected the Dean one, and we make different workshops to understand the need coming from those kind of people. So we made different workshops before coming to Katarina and explaining our need, explaining the KPI for the Dean for this role. And it was an iterative process, in fact. At the end, we had different dashboard, and we are going to launch it, I think, next week. So it's really at that step.
Also, I want to share, like, their deans, they have, like, really high expectation in terms of having all data points accessible to them right since the beginning. But Charlotte did her work as a champion of the product to convince them to stick with standard and more simple report. And as Becky was saying, that's the success of launching it so easily and so fast, and meeting our standard report, meeting the needs of the KPIs that they shared with us.
I will just add something about the garbage in, garbage out, because I really fully agree with that sentence. The objective of the project was also to identify those kind of improvement to be done regarding the structure of Moodle and the structure of the course content. So we are happy to find something which doesn't work from our Moodle perspective as well. So voilà. And we really wanted to go to the standard report from Intelliboard, and then maybe adding one or two custom fields. But the most important was to use what exists directly with Intelliboard.
Thank you, Charlotte. Lord, you deserve your whiskey bottle.
You know, and that made me think too, those of you that have been around for a while, you know that we launched Intelliboard, our enterprise version, in 22. And it was with the idea of bringing all of your data together and building dashboards. You know, we have a robust builder, and we can ingest data from other sites. And what we realized in 23 and working with a lot of you and your clients is that people didn't really want that. They weren't ready for that. And they didn't know exactly what they needed. So we really took all of 23 and 24, spending hours and hours with clients, talking with people like EHL and Taltech in the room, and building dashboards that specifically meet the needs of these roles. And saying, and then in 25, it's let's try the persona-based approach where we're rolling it out persona by persona, these rich dashboards that already tell the story, that already have the transformed data into the insights that they truly need, and start there. So when you come into Intelliboard, we really, really like to talk with you about the defaults that are already there that meet the needs of institutions across the globe. And then from that, let's build. Let's add in your big blue button data. Let's add in other data sets from your SIS, your demographic data, to that dashboard instead of building everything from scratch, because we've done a great job of transforming that data. So what we do with the Moodle data is we take it and we transform it before we store those data fields. So all of those calculations now are just part of the data sets that are native to or default to a new Intelliboard instance. So how, does anyone else have an answer to this question with or without Intelliboard? How did you decide what data is most important, or what data do you feel is most important that maybe you don't have access to? I think, Kat, you had Inov.
Inov, it's a French client. Their headquarters are located in Paris, but they have several campuses across the entire country. Inov, and it seems like this is a quite common user story in France, accreditation, it's quite serious. So they decided to start with the org role instructional designer, which they call a pedagogical engineer. So right now they're heavily using Intelliboard this week, last week, the week before, because the semester just started, and they have some specific reports that are across the campus that enable them to see if the courses are already ready or not. Like, it's about course readiness, and if the teacher has already uploaded some content to it, like the syllabus. So on their case, they're with Edu now, and on their case, we had to do like some custom reporting, because they have like the way they have the Moodle setup, but so they use it, critical data, instructional designer. I can talk also about PadPilot, but maybe we can talk on the other slide, if you will.
Well, and the biggest one, PadPilot.
Yeah, so PadPilot, they're not here, they're from the UK. Their Moodle Workplace, so who works with Moodle Workplace knows how fun it is compared with Moodle. So we have new layers of data, new tables related with tenants, with course sections, user sections as well. So PadPilot, they're a school of pilots. So our champion, she's director of operations and responsible for delivering the reporting. So they are with Titus. They have their Moodle Workplace set up by Titus, and tenants are aligned with their categories. Each category of tenants, it's a school of pilots. So their first role, it's called tenant admin, and they're the responsibles to see if the pilots are completing their mandatory training. So on their case, they also have groups and modules. And Moodle reporting was not enough, and that's why they reach out to us, because in one single dashboard they can have not only the user's progress on the course, but they can also see the group that the user belongs to, as well as the module progress in the course and all the activities that they have completed. In their case, they have also set up weekly notifications for those tenant admin to know exactly which pilots have already completed the modules, the activities, and the courses. So that was like, I think, the biggest win, to have it all together in one single dashboard, because before they had to do several clicks, click, 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 go to the course, download the information, and then combine Excel tables and cross information. That's it. Do I have whiskey too for me? Maybe after.
I think you've earned a few too many whiskeys. I don't know. But yes, we'll save you. We'll save you one. All right. Yes, Kat, thank you. All right, so just, how we do that, we're starting with the org role. In Intelliboard, we have default org roles. So all of these personas, when you first connect to Intelliboard, they all exist in the platform, and we have already curated the dashboards and the notifications that we recommend for each role, trying to make that, time to value, connect, select your org role, and deploy it. So we have the org role, academic advisor. You assign the academic advisor that curated list of reports, so the ones that are in their library, the ones that are on their My Dashboard, already set. We can pull in the permissions from Moodle if that user exists in Moodle. If they have the course permissions, we can sync those and it picks up Moodle permissions. Easy. If it is a user who exists outside of Moodle, it is a simple spreadsheet that we import, build that relationship, store that relationship, and then Annie advisor only sees her advisees. All right, data or drama. Intelliboard's risk score compares a student's behavior not just against submissions, but also against peer activity in the same course. Data or drama? This is kind of tough because this is a newer feature, but it's also kind of a leading question. Data. So we have a new risk score, and kind of back to the idea of garbage in, garbage out. When we, all of the prototyping, everything that we are doing with AI, starting with high quality data and feeding that data makes the output much, much better. So instead of starting with the raw data, we're starting with the already transformed data. So the Intelliboard risk score is a new score that we are adding to defaults. It is a statistical analysis of 18 different components for those learners, for the learners in a course, which is important because it's only comparing learners to other learners within that course. Sometimes when you try to apply an algorithm, a predictive learning algorithm, you can't compare courses or programs. The program to program, course to course, the engagement in the course is very different. So one algorithm would not make sense to apply across an institution. Our Intelliboard risk score is like a credit score. It makes sense to your instructors, it makes sense to your advisors, and it lets the instructor, the advisor know if they wake up, go to work, who do I need to contact, who's most at risk. The Intelliboard risk score is going to tell them who is most at risk. These are just some additional risk type reports. I've mentioned already that tuition dollars at risk. That's more of an academic leadership report. We have deans and vice chancellors in the US that take that report to their cabinet every week, and that's the report that they look at and talk, which I love because it's real-time term Moodle data being discussed at the presidential cabinet every week, and not depending on that SIS data that happens at the end of the term. Course tool summary is an example of something that would maybe identify risk or concern for that instructional designer. RSI, that's your engagement with your instructor and your learners. The at risk, it could be the risk score. We have predictive learning analytics. It could also just be a simple if then or a this plus this. Sometimes people just say, I want risks to be anyone who has below a 60 in 2 courses, below a 70 in 2 courses. That is simple risk, and it makes sense, and it's easy to do, and that's how they identify risk. And if that's the definition, we can start there. Projected DFW are your Ds, your Fs, and your withdrawals. That is often a measure in the SIS. The Student Information System has your DFW rate. It's a very important ratio or percentage for your registrars, for your academic leadership. And again, when do they find out the DFW rate? When the course is over. So having a dashboard, the DFW, early in the semester, you can start to see programs, departments, courses that have a high DFW and do something about it proactively, early. So now we've identified the challenges that we have with data, the identifying risk, and not just putting it all on the instructor. All too often, it's the instructor who is supposed to identify risk and send a notification. Instructors are busy. They have a lot of things going on, and they have a lot of students. And click, click, click to identify risk is very difficult. So, putting all of that on the instructor and not providing them the tools is not an effective strategy. So taking that risk and putting it across the institution builds a community focused on identifying learners early and often, and then doing something about it. We love to work with institutions on building a consistent notification strategy. Too often, schools don't have a consistent notification strategy. And an instructor sending a notification that just says to the advisor, this student is performing below peers, is not that helpful. And the worst part is often that notification goes to also the learners, who would then receive a notification that say, you're performing below your peer. And what do? They typically continue that trend because there's no action. So making the data actionable and going that next step. So here's the risk, and what are we going to do about it? There's several ways that you can set up notifications. You can set up a notification to be sent automatically every week, every month, every Monday, every morning, based on a filtered data set. So once you identify what data you want to know and who you want to know it, you can set that up to send automatically. You can also go into a report and hit the little notification and the little check boxes on the left and send a notification directly to a learner or to the advisor or to the instructor, whoever is in that report, making it actionable. So I wanted to take just a few minutes to talk about interventions, because interventions are the most important piece of all of this data. It doesn't do any good to have access to the data if there's no action behind that data. I have a student who was an athlete and received that notification that said you're performing below your peers. It was sent to the advisor. It was sent to the coach. The coach said, are you taking care of this? And what does an 18-year-old boy say? Yep, yes, okay. At the end of the semester, 1.99, lost his scholarship, had to leave that school. Your intervention strategy matters. What you do with that data, seeing that data and then just saying this kid is below their peers is not an effective strategy. So I just wanted to open up the floor. I think we have probably several more. I cannot take this whiskey home, so we're going to need some. What's an example of where an early alert helped you intervene with learners? Or how did you encourage your faculty, your managers, your advisors, your leadership to act on early warning data? Does anyone have a successful notification strategy to share? Okay.
We leveraged the kind of early in-down NPS scores, like kind of satisfaction to do automated outreach. Very specific outreach directly to the students from our staff and found that that actually had, even though that they never responded, students were much better off and had higher success rates and higher satisfaction rates.
Yeah, that's great.
That was just for whiskey.
Do your advisors or your mentors have access to term data to intervene? Or is it after the fact? I mentioned Southern University earlier, using the dollars at risk and identifying that 50% of their student body was at risk. We also work with New Mexico State University, their global campus, and they had a simple definition of risk. They are a global online institution, and so to them, they said any learner who has not logged in 7 days is at risk. Simple report. They made it actionable. They took the report that just shows time since last activity, set it to 7 days, and because we have a builder and you can customize your report, they removed the filter. So when they give that report to people, they can't, anyone on this report is at risk. You can't change the filter. If they're on this report, they're at risk. Your job is to get this report to 0. That's actionable. When they first launched that report, they had 217 students who had not been active in the last 7 days. They made contact with those learners, and within 2 weeks, it was when they ran the report again, they only had 13. So looking at your data and saying, okay, this is the data that we want, that we know we need. This is what it tells us, and then this is who needs access to it so that they can do that next step. Is an important part of building the notification strategy. And it's also good to take a report at midterm and filter it to those who did well on the midterm, who have submitted their first assignment, and build in some positive notifications to send out as well. Any other notification? Visiting a course is enough proof of attendance. Now, I have Title IV in here. If Title IV is not applicable to you, just remove that and think about attendance, your Moodle activity, engagement. Visiting a course is proof for attendance. Data or drama? We're shaking our drama. Drama. So, Title in the United States, we have Title IV funding. It's Pell Grant eligibility. You have to prove that you submitted an academic assignment within a certain percentage of the course. And the reason I wanted to bring that one up today is because it is a great example of what Intelliboard can do for your institution to build a consistent approach to a compliance requirement. So for Pell Grant eligibility, to receive financial aid, you have to submit an academic assignment within a certain percentage. That is actually a nightmare to have your instructors submit that data. It's a compliant, when your registrar is audited, they want clean data showing submission. It's also millions of dollars. So you take that data and you say, okay, let's flip it and make it actionable. We don't want to just know 10% at the 10% mark who hasn't submitted. We want as many students to be able to not be dropped from that course, to keep their scholarships, to keep their financial aid. Let's make it actionable. So we have the actual census report at the bottom, that first learner submission showing the date of first attendance, the date of first submission, the date of last, what it was, but then also the top flips it and says, okay, who has not submitted? So then when you provide this dashboard to your faculty, it's very clear. If they're in red, that needs to go away. They have not submitted. They will lose their funding. They will be dropped from the course. Build in the notification, and then you have saved learners, saved dollars, students who persist. But the idea there varies from country to country, institution to institution, but anytime that there is a type of a compliance report, we're a great solution. If there are, in the United States, we have dual enrollment. Is there a dual enrollment equivalent-ish? So the idea, you have these high school students, I think I already mentioned it, taking these college courses. Their parents, like myself, have zero visibility into anything that's happening in that college course. The college advisors don't know these high school students, but it's a significant amount of funding. Often the state funds that. The students get to go to college for free in high school, but there's zero visibility into these learners. So those dual enrollment coordinators at the institution, allowing them access to the real-time data, the learners who are at risk, and then adding in that high school information provides that, it saves that student. It provides the information that the advisor needs to know so that they can reach out and take action if there is any issue. So where are we going? The future of learning is, the next step is telling you what you need to know before you even know that you need to know it, and delivering that insight to you. The outliers, there's a change in participation, identifying a drop in participation without the advisor or the instructor even having to identify that in the report. So the idea is, if we could analyze this report, if all of this data, how can we get that data to the right person at the right time to take action on that data? And one of the ways that we're starting as we prototype and build, the first thing that we built is an explain button. So you have your data set. It's kind of like the easy button, explain, and it builds a story around the data. But the higher quality data in, the higher quality data story out. So the risk score is the first step in that quality data that will lead into our Intelliboard AI strategy. And as I mentioned earlier, there are 18 different components of the risk score. It's the statistical analysis, it's a comparison among peers, it gives you the score, and that helps you identify which students are most at risk. So identifying it early and often, notifying not just the learner, but the community around that learner, triggering the notification, and the risk score is also a daily snapshot. It's a daily snapshot of that risk score, so you can start to see the impact of your interventions throughout the course. So daily snapshot to see when you make your interventions, does that change the risk in that student? All right. Last one, institutions often lack interim visibility. We've talked about this. Interim visibility into special populations within the LMS, their engagement and their progress data or drama. Data, that's kind of a tough one because it's true, but it's a negative thing, right? So they lack interim visibility, what's happening in the Moodle. There's so much happening in the Moodle, but people outside don't know about it. So 10 years of saving students, saving time, saving money, getting the right roles, the right visibility, the early alerts, saving learners, protecting compliance, protecting retention, and of course safeguarding your revenue. So in the last 5 minutes, I have a couple questions up here, but we'll take any questions that you have. So are there any questions in the audience? We still have some whiskey.
Thank you so much. I'm Tibor Éles from Hungary, from the Financial University of Budapest, and I'm originally a Moodle developer. And a few years ago, I was asking to making such a dashboard like you were talking about, and it was also some factors who submitted it. And the purpose why I wanted to ask to maybe to get to know what does it says, what does it telling you, sorry, can you hear me? Mm-hmm. What does it telling you that who was not submitted when it was needed? Because it's like it's the final step. So what does it says to us who not submitted in time? Because we know that it's like who submitted in the early time and who submitted in the middle time and who submitted in the final time, because it's like a Gaussian shape, you know. And in my opinion, this is the really final step when we know who not submitted. There are several things happened until this time that someone not submitted.
So the question is, what does that data mean?
Yeah,
like,
what does it says to you who not submitted?
So my first thought, and then anyone else, if anyone has an opinion, or Katerina, if you have an idea, you know, in engagement, so those who are submitting early and often, or early, those would be, like, I would be concerned about the students who are waiting until the very end to submit. So what I would do with that data is, you know, maybe send some notifications getting them to submit earlier, especially if it's an assignment that they can, you know, you provide your feedback and they're able to improve it. Do you have anything, Katerina?
Yeah, I can add. So if you have this kind of role on the course, like someone that has a supportive role to the student, and they need to track if the student is submitting something, so it's not only if he's accessing the course, that would be like something like the last course date. This is something else. This is like the submission tables for assignments or the attempts from quiz or the posts from forums. So it's a way to see if, okay, they have access to it, but they have not done anything on the course. So usually if we talk about online courses and hybrid courses, you need to have these kind of activities on the course setup. But also, usually the institutions that need this have these kind of roles that need to really know weekly or monthly or before the semester ends if they have done anything. Does this make sense?
Yes, I think that there could be several signs that which can how do you say, forecast that someone will submit it. And I'm curious about everyone who is sitting here. What do you think, what they can think, what could be these signs that someone will upload in the very, very last time?
Oh, like a prediction on whether or not the student will actually submit the assignment?
Yes, for example, the students who doesn't log it in the last 5 days, that could be will not upload in time, but in late.
Right, and I would also look at views and time spent, the number of times they've opened and viewed that assignment, or how much time they've spent on it without, because if they haven't opened it, if they haven't submitted and they haven't opened it, maybe even logged into the course, then that would be who I would focus on as the highest risk. I do want to, yes, here comes Gavin. There is a 5 o'clock session with no time to change in between, so I do want to go ahead and thank you all for coming. We do have another session on Thursday that's going to deep dive into metrics, Thursday at noon, and of course a booth downstairs. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you.